I was the youngest child of a small-time government officer in Koraput, Orissa, with 4 elder brothers. My mother, who was a matriculate when she married my father, had come as a refugee from the then East Bengal. There was no electricity, no primary school nearby, and water did not flow out of a tap. I did not go to school until the age of 8. I was homeschooled. My parents set the foundation of my life and the value system which makes me what I am today, and largely defines what success means to me today. As district employment officer, my father was given a jeep by the government to tour the interiors. There was no garage in the office, so the jeep was parked in our house. As a child, I often wished to go to school riding on that jeep. One day, I asked my father,
"Father, can I ride on the jeep and go to school today?"
No, son.
"But why, father? The jeep is kept in our house, so why can't I use it?"
Son, the jeep belongs to the government. It has been given to me to use the office work. Hence, it is not right to use it to go to your school.
The first lesson of good corporate governance related to right use of company assets was given to me by my father at that very early age. A lesson many people in the corporate world learn the hard way, some do not learn. My father taught us that even the driver of the jeep has to be respected like any other member of our family. We had to use the suffix dada whenever we were to refer to him in public or in private. Nowadays, when I hear school college-going children referring to their driver as my driver, I cringe. My father often said,
You must treat small people with more respect than you treat big people. It is more important to respect your subordinates than your superiors.
Our day used to start with the family huddling around my mother's chula, an earthen fireplace where she would cook for the family. There was no gas nor electrical stoves. The morning routine started with tea. As the brew was served, father would ask us to read aloud the editorial page of the Statesman. We did not understand much of what we were reading, but the ritual was meant for us to know that the world was larger than Koraput district that we lived in. After reading the newspaper aloud, we were told to fold it neatly. Father used to say,
You should leave your newspaper and your toilet the way you expect to find it.
That simple lesson from our father in those days taught us to be considerate towards others' needs and made it very clear to us that any business begins and ends with this simple precept. My father was a fervent believer in the British Raj. He sincerely doubted the capability of the post-independence Indian political parties to govern the country. To him, the lowering of the Union Jack was a sad event. My mother was the exact opposite. Consequently, our household saw diversity in the political outlook of the two. On major issues concerning the world, the old man and the old lady had differing opinions. However, their peaceful coexistence in spite of their differences in opinion taught us the power of disagreements, of dialogue, and the essence of living with diversity in thinking. We learnt that success is not about the ability to create a definitive, dogmatic end state. It is about the unfolding of thought processes, of dialogue and continuum. The government houses that we lived in seldom had fences. My mother and I collected twigs and built a small fence. After lunch, my mother would never sleep. She would take her kitchen utensils, and with those she and I would dig the rocky, white ant-infested surrounding. We planted flowering bushes. The white ants destroyed them. My mother brought ash from a chula and mixed it in the earth, and we planted the seedlings all over again. This time they bloomed. But alas, by the time my father's transfer order came, one of our neighboring ladies asked my mother,
Mrs. Baagchi, why do you take so much pain to beautify a government house, a property which does not belong to you? Why are you planting seeds that would only benefit the next occupant?
It does not matter to me that I will see the flowers in full bloom. I have to create a bloom in a desert, and whenever I am given a new place, I must leave it more beautiful than what I had inherited.
That day I learnt from my mother that success is not about what you create for yourself. It is what you leave behind that defines success. Imagination is everything. If we can imagine a future, we can create it. If we can create that future, others will live in it. My mother began developing a cataract in her eyes when I was very small, and in 1969 she lost her eyesight. She died in 2002. In all those 32 years of living with blindness, she never complained about her fate even once. Curious to know what she saw with blind eyes, I asked her once if she sees darkness. My mother replied,
No, I do not see darkness. I only see light, even with my eyes closed.
I learnt from my mother that success is about the sense of independence. It is about not seeing the world but seeing the light. Over the years I grew up, studied, joined the industry and began to carve my life's own journey. I began my life as a clerk in a government office, went on to become a management trainee with the DCM group, and eventually found my life's calling with the IT industry when fourth generation computers came to India in 1981. Life took me places. I worked with outstanding people, challenging assignments, and traveled all over the world. In 1992, while I was posted in the US, I learnt that my father, living a retired life with my eldest brother, had suffered a third-degree burn injury and was admitted in the Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi. I flew back to attend to him. He remained for a few days in critical stage, bandaged from neck to toe. The Safdarjung Hospital is a cockroach-infested, dirty, inhuman place. The overworked, under-resourced sisters in the burn ward are both victims and perpetrators of dehumanized life at its worst. One morning, while attending to my father, I realized that the blood bottle was empty, and fearing that air would go into his vein, I asked the attending nurse to change it. She bluntly told me,
"Do it yourself."
In that horrible theater of death, I was in pain and frustration and anger. Finally, when she relented and came, my father opened his eyes and murmured,
Why have you not gone home yet?
Here was a man on his deathbed, but more concerned about the overworked nurse than his own state. I was stunned at his stoic self. There I learnt that there is no limit to how concerned you can be for another human being, and what is the limit of inclusion you can create. My father died the next day. He was a man whose success was defined by his principles, his frugality, his universalism, and his sense of inclusion. Above all, he taught me that success is your ability to rise above your discomfort, whatever may be your current state. You can, if you want, raise your consciousness above your immediate surroundings. Success is not about building material comforts. His success was about the legacy he left, the mimetic continuity of his ideals that grew beyond the smallness of an ill-paid, unrecognized government servant. Success to me is about vision. It is the ability to rise above the immediacy of pain. It is about imagination. It is about sensitivity to small people. It is about building inclusion. It is about connectedness to a large world existence. It is about personal tenacity. It is about giving back more to life than you take out of it. It is about creating extraordinary success with ordinary lives.